When we plan OU teaching, we really want it so that the OU students will be able to go to any university and be able to hold up their heads and there'll be no big gaps in their knowledge. And for that, they really need to study really cutting-edge stuff. And you can't write cutting-edge stuff unless you do the research yourself. So I've done teaching material in areas I've done research in, that's consciousness, in the natural beauty of the natural world, things like that. And I think that material that I've written is right at the forefront of current thinking in the area. And if it's not, I think that would be a pity, because then OU students would be being shortchanged.
Well, my research probably feeds in indirectly. And I think that's the way it should be. It's not as if, because I have a specialist piece of research, and because it animates me and enthuses me, I can't assume that students are going to be enthused by it. You don't just put it, it's not a one-to-one relationship. My research, I teach it. I'll give an example. There's a level 1 course on introducing social sciences. I write about the power of supermarkets, about Tesco, about Asda, about Sainsbury's, Lidl and the rest of it. And I teach something very simple. Is it a zero-sum game or a positive-sum game? It's a zero-sum game if supermarkets win and consumers lose out. It's a positive-sum game if we all win. That's not my research. My research is power. I use my research to inform something about an everyday topic. And it's the everyday topic that's the hook for students, not my research. If you're an active researcher, you're placing yourself at the forefront of your discipline. And if you're at the forefront, you're aware of all the new ideas in your discipline. Now that feeds into teaching. It keeps teaching fresh. But perhaps more than that, it actually helps to shape the area you're teaching rather than simply reflect other people's ideas.
My research feeds into teaching excellence and curriculum in lots of ways. First of all, just looking at what I've just been doing, the study of the Meno. The Meno is a dialogue about whether virtue can be taught, and it's a dialogue where lots of people's epiphanies are put into consideration. They're part of what we're trying to understand. And Socrates himself describes a kind of epiphany that he had, something that he learned from other people. Right in the middle of the dialogue, that kind of epiphany comes up. So it feeds into my teaching because it's related to what I teach. It's also true in a more general sense that if you want a good commentator on a sport, you typically pick someone who's played that sport at an international level themselves. If you want a good commentator on a philosophical dialogue, you want someone who's at the top of their research game. You want people who are also excellent researchers. And I think that's something that we have in spades in the Open University. I look around the faculty and I'm really impressed by the width and the depth of my colleagues' insight, because they're specialist researchers. They're great teachers too. Active research makes the curriculum evolve and be more dynamic in a number of ways. The first one's very simple. It's just that if you don't have active researchers writing your curriculum, then the people writing your curriculum won't necessarily know what's going on at the forefront of research. And that's very important. And secondly, if you have active researchers writing your curriculum, then the people who are writing your curriculum will be full of ideas that they're really enthusiastic to communicate to someone. Because this is what happens. You spend the morning in the library and you fill up your head with ideas. You spend the afternoon wanting to tell someone about them. And also, if you're an active researcher, then your interface with your curriculum is that you can see lots of ways in which it could go if it needed to change. And all the time at the OU, we're revising curriculum, we're rewriting it, we're restructuring it. So all the time, we need that kind of expertise, which you can only get from people who have a good overview of what's going on in the research that's relevant to the curriculum.
My research directly informs my teaching. Currently, I am involved in writing a course called Environment, Responding to Change. And this course looks at climate change, loss of biodiversity, and food security as three main environmental challenges that we are dealing with. And so the data that I have collected during my research will directly inform my teaching on this module. And it presents a view of food security that is more environmentally sustainable. It focuses on a multifunctional nature of food landscapes, where producing more food is just one of the goals, in addition to protecting wildlife, doing nature conservation, leaving a smaller footprint on the planet. As a 19th century German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer has said, research is to see what everyone else sees, but to think what no one else has thought about. And so that cutting-edge research is something that informs an excellent, high-quality teaching. And the data that I have collected, for example, will really inform how students view food security and how they think about food security.
I'm involved in the production of curriculum around personal finance and economics, and I think my research feeds into that in two ways. The first is very direct, in that the content of my research can influence the content of what we're actually teaching in the modules. But there is a second way, which I think is even more important, and that's because during my research I'm working with, for example, regulators and providers, and I'm getting a breadth and depth of insight into those industries that I couldn't possibly get in any other way. And that really helps to make our curriculum both salient, up to date, and at the cutting edge of developments. With any social science, knowledge doesn't exist in isolation from people. The knowledge is constructed by the interactions between people, and that's always in flux. So research helps us to keep abreast of and also influence the current state of knowledge. And what's really important there is that then feeds into the way we teach our students so that they have an understanding of how knowledge is constructed and the role that social scientists play in capturing and influencing those developments.